Good morning, readers. So, before we get started with today's lesson, I'd like for you to read this short passage on the screen. Please pause your video until you're done reading. Okay, now that you've had a chance to read this passage, I bet you're probably wondering, this isn't exactly how I remembered that scene going from The Tiger Rising. And you're correct, because this scene is actually fan fiction. I wrote this as a fan of the fiction story The Tiger Rising. So I tried to write it in Kate DiCamillo's style to really match the setting that was already here, but I kind of did it a little bit differently based on how I kind of wanted the scene to go instead. So that's the fun thing about fan fiction. Today in Reader's Workshop, we have a really fun lesson planned for you guys, and I know already that you're going to love it and that you guys are going to do some amazing work. I already cannot wait to see what you guys come up with. So we're going to be creating our own fan fiction from our favorite author's work. Please make sure that you have your reader's notebook today because it will be essential. Also make sure that you have a pencil with you so you can record notes from today's lesson. I'm going to be going over several very important steps. Also, please make sure that you listen to the class read aloud. Okay, so today I want to teach you readers that whenever we really love an author's work, we'll sometimes write alongside that author, writing fan fiction by drafting scenes that could be inserted into existing stories. So in order to do this work effectively, readers really have to study the characters. They have to study the setting and the plot, and they really have to study the style of the author in order for it to be convincing. So I'm going to take you guys through a 4-step process to help you write your own fan fiction. Step 1, pick a scene. So you're going to look at crucial scenes throughout the text, scenes where maybe you pause in admiration of how well something is written. Whenever I read this part from Edward Tulane, I really had to pause and reread it because it was just written so beautifully. They went outside, and Lawrence lit his pipe and held Edward there on his shoulder. And if the night was clear, Lawrence said the names of the constellations one at a time: Andromeda, Pegasus, pointing at them with the stem of his pipe. Edward loved looking up at the stars, and he loved the sounds of the constellation names. They were sweet in his ears. Sometimes, though, staring up at the night sky, Edward remembered Pellegrina, saw again her dark and glowing eyes, and a chill would go through him. I just think it's such a beautiful scene, and I can just so vividly picture Edward on top of Lawrence's shoulders, staring up at the clear night sky with the sparkling stars. So I feel really inspired by this scene. Something else that we might consider is looking at different parts in the text that made you respond in a strong way. So maybe there's a part that made you laugh out loud, a part that made you angry, a part that broke your heart and made you want to cry. Maybe you did cry. So I chose another passage like this from Edward Tulane, just so I had a couple of options. "Ma!" Lolly shouted. "I'm taking the truck. I'm going to head on out to do some errands." "Oh!" came Nellie's tremulous voice. "That's wonderful, dear. Goodbye, then." "Goodbye," thought Edward as Lolly hauled the garbage can out to the truck. "Goodbye," Nellie called again, louder this time. Edward felt a sharp pain somewhere deep inside his china chest. For the first time, his heart called out to him. It said 2 words: Nellie, Lawrence. At first, when I read this, my heart breaks for Edward that he's just unfairly being taken away from these sweet this sweet old couple that cares so much for him, by their daughter of all people. And then the more that I think about it, the scene kind of makes me angry. I get really upset. Like, what kind of a daughter would do that to her parents? I don't understand. So now I'm gonna look at both of these scenes and figure out which one do I think I would have an easier time writing fan fiction for. Which one maybe do I have a stronger inspiration from? And I think you guys could probably tell by the way that I was talking about it, but I definitely feel a bit more emotional about this second text. So I'm gonna choose that one to write my fan fiction about. Step 2. You're going to choose a direction for your writing. So there's a couple of different paths that you might choose. The first one is you might ask yourself, what scene is missing that I wish the author had included? So maybe you want to create a brand new scene to go before or after that part in your text. Or maybe you want to ask yourself, what part was unwritten or unclear that would have given the readers a better understanding of maybe the characters, a better understanding of different relationships of that particular event, which, as you could probably tell, in my example I used for the Tiger Rising, I just revised an existing scene. I didn't create a brand new one, but this time I think for Edward Tulane, I'm going to choose missing scene. I want to create a brand new one. I think that that's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so now I'm going to very closely observe different story elements in my mentor text, and then I'm going to start planning for my own scene. So remember, we created fiction scenes at the very beginning of Writer's Workshop in Unit 1, whenever you guys drafted those short scenes. So you're only doing one scene, okay? So you don't have to focus on a whole new story, just one scene. Okay, so I'm going to look at the characters in this story. I know that I have Edward, who in my scene that I'm going to create, he's going to be having these angry thoughts. He can't really have any actions because, you know, he's a porcelain rabbit. So I'm going to think about what are his thoughts, what are his actions, what is he saying, is there dialogue. I'm going to think about relationships and maybe different perspectives. So you guys know all about perspective and how we think about like important life events. Maybe even you want to change the narrator in your new scene. That's up to you. Okay, and then Lolly, all I really know about her from the text is that she's a secretary. I know that she's really loud. And based on how she is responding to this whole situation, I think she's very jealous of the attention that Edward is getting. And I think she's a very mean-hearted woman that she is, taking away this precious possession of her parents. So I think I'm going to kind of use that to fuel my ideas. Okay, and then I'm going to consider the setting. I'm just going to keep it the same, and I'm going to maybe talk about the scene that's going to happen next. So it's still daytime, and Lolly is leaving Nellie and Lawrence's home. And then for my plot, we want to consider order of events. We want to think about like the Story Mountain, how there's the big uh-oh, and then the phew at the end. So like problem and solution. So I think the big problem here is that Lolly is clearly very jealous and a little embarrassed that people around the town are referring to Edward as their rabbit child. So maybe that's a little embarrassing for her that people think her parents are going a little crazy. And her solution to that is to discard Edward at the dump. So I'm going to use that as my plot for my mini scene that I'm going to write. And step 4, you are ready to draft. So tomorrow we'll revise and edit our work, and then you guys are going to share it with each other. So I'll give more directions about that tomorrow, but I just wanted you to know that that is for sure your deadline. Okay, so do as much planning and drafting as you can today, so that way you'll be ready for the class share tomorrow. Today, though, this is what I need you to do. Step 1, look at the mentor text again. Now, you can use any of the 4 Cynthia Rylant texts, so it can be something different than what you're using for Writer's Workshop, and it can be something different than what you've used in the previous days, but it does need to be one of those 4 texts: Shells, Spaghetti, Slower Than the Rest, or Papa's Parrot. I don't care which one, just any one of those 4. Then I want you to study the scenes that you loved or gave you a strong emotional response. Step 2, figure out if you'll be writing a new scene to go with this part or revise what Rylant has already written. Step 3, complete the planning document, which is your exit ticket for this lesson, and then that will help you organize your ideas. Step 4, craft your scene in your reading notebook. So today we're drafting, so try to get as many thoughts in there as you can. Include lots of action, dialogue. Remember to show, not tell. Okay, I'm going to just get started on this work with you guys, and remember, I'll be using the scene from Edward Tulane. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with, and I will be back tomorrow with more instructions on how we will share our work with each other. Good luck, readers/writers!